Well, I just have a few announcements this morning that are things that are really exciting. Well, we know every Wednesday night we have something very exciting here, and it's Miles. And he is teaching on powerful tools to create your new reality. So you get a taste of Miles here almost every other Sunday, and then he's doing his Wednesday class, which is just phenomenal. He's studied Seth for over 45 years. So if you know about that channel material, it's all of them really are woven in together. I was reading something of, I think Marianne Williamson, and she was saying, you know, it's all one cosmic message, but we receive it in so many different ways, and some of us hear it in different ways. So anyway, if you haven't come, it starts at 7 to 8:30 every Wednesday, and it's just awesome. And then we have two, now I've heard it's not two gals, it's a lady and a man that are coming all the way from Italy, from a place called Domenher that I visited a few years ago, and the book is down here. If you haven't seen it, they built these temples, these artisans in the 70s began building these temples, these ancient temples inside of a mountain. They have an alchemy chamber. They have all of these different things that are just, and they do all kinds of ancient rituals. And they have a community that lives together over there that is just incredible. So they're going to bring the alchemy class to America. That's the one I really wanted to take. It's about transforming ourselves within ourselves. So she's bringing a gentleman that's a teacher of that class over in Italy in Domenher. So he'll be here, and Trigrillo will be here. If you know about her, she teaches the music of the plants all over the world. She had a machine when here was last time that you could hook up to the plant, and they had notes to each vibration. And so if you walked up to the plant, you could hear the plant if it felt good about you or if the plant started to screech. And they even had a woman that used to water the plants, and they hooked up the vibration some way, and that plant would say that, would sing out that woman's name when she passed by, because she knew that the plant knew that she was the one that watered it. I mean, it was a fascinating class. And Trigrillo, one of the things she said, instead of hugging a tree, back up to a tree and let your spinal cord be next to the tree. I was remembering she was telling us the other day. I was sitting at the beach. But anyway, just a lot of interesting things. So they will be here Friday, October the 20th from 7:30 to 9. Then the Alchemy School starts on the 21st, and it'll be 9 to 6. And then it'll be on, I think it's Sunday afternoon. Anyway, I think there's 3 different times, and there's flyers back there. So they will be coming in, I think, on the 18th. So they'll have some time for private sessions too, which I'll have some flyers for those. So that's it for announcements. We're going to sing
new people.
Oh, yes, I want to welcome new people. We have a new couple here this morning. You want to tell us your names, and so we can welcome you?
This is our friend Becky. Yeah,
that's all right.
Yeah.
But you're next. Okay, good.
This is Olivia. She's sleeping right now. She's 9 months. My name's Andrea.
And my name's Ryan.
Hello. Welcome you. Welcome. And your old friend, Vicki. Vicki, we welcome you. We're so glad you came. Okay, so what we're going to do is sing another song, and then we're going to have Miles speak. So get ready. We have him trained. We say.
So today I'm going to be turning on my mic.
Yeah, don't forget the recorder.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I got that. I'm not. It's a challenge for me to do 2 things, as we will be glad to tell you. Okay, we're ready.
Okay.
So the astonishing power of emotions. So, as I was telling Reba in my own humble way on the way here today, right, I'm really impressed that I had the courage to choose a topic so deep and so complex as emotions, but I'm so glad that I did. So if the topics that we'll be talking about in emotions are kind of ephemeral. I mean, we believe we have thoughts. Mike Dooley has convinced us that thoughts are things, but what about emotions? Not so much. And yet, they're very, very similar to thoughts. And what I want to convey today is that emotions are our friend, our ally, our huge ally. And emotions are a gift, similar to time. We just don't have the right context to understand them. So just like time is our ally, emotions are our ally as well. Now, emotions play a pivotal role in the creation of our physical reality. There's an interplay between all that is and consciousness units and electromagnetic energy units, which I refer to as emotional units. And our emotions create a bridge to all that is. And the consciousness units that want expression in our reality, even more than we want it, follow that emotional bridge back into our lives. So it's easy to see, the bigger your emotion, the bigger the bridge. Now, emotions and feelings are inherently just energy, and neither good or bad. They just are. And what they are is clear communication from our inner spirit about our beliefs. Now, thoughts and emotions are actualities in themselves. They go out to their own independent existence and join other energy gestalts, or energy organizations, or energy libraries. These are libraries of vibrational patterns. And they're available to anyone. So the emotions go out and associate with other like emotions in these energy gestalts. Now within us, we have something I refer to as the feeling tone, which is the various emotional factors within each of us, we could call it our personality, that cause what we may call an emotional climate within us, a characteristic emotional climate that I'm calling the feeling tone. And this is a vibration composed of the vibration of all our beliefs. And that's what the universe matches according to the law of attraction. So you can see how pivotal, how very important emotion is in our creation process. Now, uncharacteristic thoughts or emotions are often met with some resistance in us, for instance, when we start having psychic experiences. So we, that is our personality, through negative experiences, create boundaries around our own emotional system to protect us. Let's say in our family, this is an example, our father or mother or some other important figure in our life found safety in negative emotions. And they protected themselves by the denial of hope and the inhibition of joy, so they would not feel disappointment or defeat. In other words, if you don't hope for something or you're not joyful, that can't be taken away from you. Now, in our relationships, have we inhibited the joyful expression and loving emotions? Maybe we're not afraid as much of negative emotions because the authority figures in our life demonstrated the denial of hope for their protection, and we're used to that feeling. So we deny it in ourselves. And worse, we frequently do this in love, refusing to allow ourselves to love too much in order to protect ourselves. And even worse, we train ourselves to ignore our emotions. War is built on this premise. We must ignore our emotions and follow orders. And at the highest level in the military, as a SEAL or a Ranger, you're trained over and over to demonstrate that you can ignore your feelings and literally be willing to kill yourself to follow an order. I'll never forget a SEAL talking about an underwater exercise they had to do. They had to go down and tie these knots underwater. And one of the guys went down, and it was his third and last try, and he passed out underwater. And when he came up, his first question is, did I pass? And the instructor said, you missed the point. The point wasn't whether you could tie the knots. The point was whether you could control your body enough to put yourself at risk in order to follow an order. To many of us, unconsciously, an emotional encounter means an encounter with unpleasant emotions. We hide our emotions from each other, even more than our thoughts. Now, we show this mindset physically, that is hiding our emotions and blocked emotions, not from the distant past, but from a current life habit. For example, some people, often women, but men too, suffer more from a lack of a rich emotional interaction than someone like me that's had countless lives as a warrior, trained to repress my emotions. But others are less able to take that. So women and men will cripple our ability to move through physical reality effectively due to our emotions, and this shows up, for instance, as arthritis or any other number of physical ailments. So when you create a situation emotionally inside yourself where you won't allow yourself to feel, that's a big problem. So often we start to block our emotions to protect the others in our lives and therefore protect our emotions. For instance, it's not uncommon for a woman to realize that her husband doesn't, or spouse or partner doesn't really like the experience of emotions or strong emotion, and therefore she'll start to repress those inner selves around him. Well, that's exactly what I was talking about. Lack of rich emotional interaction. So when you're blocking that, you've got problems. Our beliefs generate our emotions. Our conscious thinking largely determines our emotions and not the other way around. Our beliefs generate the appropriate emotion that is implied. That is to say, if we believe something is bad, we feel bad. So, if, against your better judgment, you do something that you think is bad, you feel bad. Your emotions are not betraying you by making you feel bad. You're betraying yourself by not following your values. You're not at the mercy of your emotions either, for they are meant to follow the flow of your reasoning. If your beliefs about existence are fearful, then the emotional reactions will be those leading to stress. A long period of inner depression does not just come upon you. Your emotions do not betray you. Instead, over a period of time, you have consciously been entertaining negative beliefs that then generated strong emotions of despondency or strong feelings of despondency. Here, the belief itself will generate the negative emotions that will indeed bring about a physical or emotional illness. And the most destructive emotion of all to the body is self-pity. In the physical realm, it goes without saying that a repressed emotion is never really repressed, for this is impossible. The rejected emotion, in other words, will express itself in any case, but it will do so as a rebel, outside of the organized directives of the ego itself. Hence, for example, actions that appear senseless to the ego are often results of such unassimilated or denied emotions. At one time or another, such emotions were acceptable to an ego. to your ego. There was an attraction, or the emotion would not have been permitted to enter into a realm close to ego control. When an attempt is made to reject an emotion, this does not affect the emotion half as much as it affects the individual involved. For instance, the avoidance of direct confrontation with those negative emotions blocks out an emotional solution. An emotional statement on your part that counters this block can create a meeting of emotions. A statement like an affirmation. I want to feel and honor my emotions. Now, the next is a different perspective on how we live our life. When we set goals now, we generally set something concrete. And what I'm saying to you is that's something that you should try and make part of your past. And when you set goals now, set your goals for the feelings that you want to have. Set your goals for the feelings you want to have. Let's give emotions a higher place in our life. And when you do that, you'll be astounded by the results. The expressed emotional anger, accusation, or hurt on our part would automatically, or should, bring out in us an answering emotional statement. So we've expressed an emotion. Maybe it's anger. Maybe it's hurt. It should bring out an emotional statement in us, answering in that any hurts or reasons on our part would be expressed with feelings, and the way cleared. The way is cleared. Because we've expressed our emotions, we've cleared the energy out and allowed something else to come in. The way cleared for an emotional statement of love or regret, or on both our parts, an emotional expression of sorrow for having hurt the other. When we hold our emotions in, we block solutions. No matter how open it may seem that you are, you will nevertheless accept certain emotions you think is safe. Bless you.
Thank you.
And ignore others, or stop them at particular points because you're afraid of following them further. For instance, we accept only those emotions that appear to be in keeping with our ideas of youth, even though we consider ourselves quite emotional, perhaps. So if it gets to something related to youth, we open up and embrace it, but when it comes to an older person, maybe we want to protect ourselves. Maybe we want to be involved, but from a distance, by phone, for instance. When we refute such emotions or become terrified by them, we impede the flow of feeling from one moment to the other, and this is a big deal. Any emotion will change into another if you experience it honestly. In physical reality, this is not instantaneous. We need time to adjust and allow the change process. But the important thing is not to block the process. In other words, experience our emotions honestly. For instance, feeling anger and then in the calm after the anger, sensing other things like regret or caring or even love. In helping others express their emotions, we also find our emotional nature released and enriched. We also find our own emotional nature released and enriched. Many of us feel emotions deeply, hence the repression of them causes difficulties. It is the conscientious self, like an inner guard set up by the ego, who attaches the idea of good and bad to emotions in order to protect us. It is our emotional nature, however, and spontaneity that opens up our eyes to the necessity for emotional expression. Letting others know that you're not afraid of emotional expression on their part is most important. Now, associations are tied together, so to speak, by emotional experience, which, as I said earlier, is why we do not want to impede their flow. So we've talked quite a few times about no time. So what holds things together? Well, it's value fulfillment. But the way you get to value fulfillment is through free association. And what works in free association is emotion. What's working in free association is emotion. And I want to try and give an example of this. So for instance, we have this system greater than any supercomputer that's ever been created or ever will be created inside of us that keeps track of our feeling about every subject. So when we go to a feeling, we can go to the subject. Or if we go to the subject, we go to the feeling. But once we get to that feeling will take us to other places. Because like thoughts go out and associate with other like thoughts, feelings go out and associate with other like feelings. So it's like they've been out there working for us. So as we take our mind and focus it on what we want and feel good, we can actually put those to work for us right now on any subject. And if you can't find your way to a good feeling place, see if you can find your way to a symbol that you believe in. And use that symbol, and that way you'll keep yourself separated, you'll have some distance, you can be the observer, and still imbue the situation with a good feeling, a feeling of optimism about the future. Now, the emotional feelings with the subject or an item are as real as the item itself. These emotional charges are interpreted and finally translated into physical form. The emotions are actually creating our physical life. Now, we can't keep track of emotions, where they come from, where they go. That emotions go out and have their own life, really? And then, of course, there's the fact that we have no conception remotely of the enormous power of emotions. Emotions, strong emotions in us, have the power to send a rocket ship to the moon. Now, they don't find expression in our lives, do they? So where does all that energy go? Well, that energy shows up in countless other levels of reality or probabilities, finding expression, because the energy will find expression. And if we can create a way to allow that energy to flow through us, both the good and the bad, the good will lighten us up and levitate us, and the bad emotions will clear out any blockages and allow new emotions that are constructive and that are wanted to come in. In other words, the emotional charges allow me to hunt for the item that you want me to identify. Identify first with all of the emotional realities, for these are the only basic realities to me. In other words, what I'm standing here saying is, the things that we think are reality, the physical things that we think are reality, they're not. What actually is reality is emotions. That's what reality is. Reality is our emotions. So, the answer, of course, so these feelings are an organizational force in our lives far more powerful than, for instance, say, time. So these feelings organize themselves, and they create a structure that we live out of, including that feeling tone that's in our body. And that feeling tone is a vibration, and that's what the universe is matching according to the law of attraction. To call this telepathy tells you nothing, however, for all this information is the result of emotional force. But when you start connecting and you're open to your emotions, you're going to get one heck of a lot of insights that's going to carry you to powerful places. Emotional reasoning rises far above this. The inner, highly precise nature of emotional intellect is hidden from us, for the physical intellect cannot follow it. Therefore, the emotional intellect seems chaotic. Emotion, a particular emotion as you know it, is the result of information and deductions already made of which you are aware. These things don't just happen. You went through circumstances in your life and you drew conclusions from them. And you made decisions like, I want more of that, I don't want this. Because all this information is not available to the brain, it sees the emotion as a sudden thing, appearing within the brainscape's reach, often unexplainable and therefore to some extent threatening. For instance, say you were beat as a child or as a young person. Those feelings are feelings that stay with you, and they can be as strong today in your life and being the basis for decisions you make about how you live your life today as they were at the time they happened. They can even be stronger because in the interim, have you been making them bad or have you been making them better? Because if you keep repeating that story about the hardships and the suffering, you're making it bigger. And that's a place you're living out of. The emotional intellect, for example, is not time-oriented, and this alone makes no sense to the physical brain. Now, this emotional kind of information is helpful to our development because we can, to some degree, understand how this emotional intellect works if we try and understand the material intuitively with our imagination and try and feel it out. So, when we're experiencing feelings that make us uncomfortable, create some space and time where you can explore your emotions. Be still and know. And during this time of huge energetic transition and transformation, there is no more important dictum than know thyself. Why? In quiet and contemplation, your feelings will take you to your beliefs. Ask yourself, what belief would I have to feel this way? When you get your answer, and it's not hidden, then ask yourself, if, in view of what I already know, is this belief rational? Is this belief empowering? And if not, then you know your work. You need to not only choose another belief, you need to focus on that belief. In other words, when you wobble, you have to take action to reorient yourself vibrationally with your new belief. Here's an example. Say you're feeling lonely and alone, maybe even isolated, maybe even despondent. But you know that all that is in the universe, every particle of the universe, loves you unconditionally, and that the entire universe reorganizes itself every instant with you at the center. You know that everything that exists is part of all that is, and that all that is one, and only one thing, and that is love. The pure, positive energy of love. So you decide to take action. You decide you're going to go outside into nature and exercise, walk, and smile. And contemplate and open to the wonder and the love of all that is in the universe. In other words, you're taking action. You're getting out of your old environment, your old vibration, and into a new or different environment, vibration, and you're opening up to the love of all that is. Now, let's say that you're successful and you feel better. When you come back, the next step is to take a minute to reorganize your physical space so that you're not the same old, same old. Do something, move papers around, move the chair around, do something to reorganize your physical space so that you're giving your inner spirit a clear message. I am in control. I am setting the tone here. Then take some time to explore emotions and feelings that you had further. In quiet, look into your life and find where you had that feeling previously that is now impacting your life so strongly. Now, when you find that experience with that feeling, realize that the younger, less experienced you, took that action at the time with good intention and good reasons, no matter what the outcome. But after the negative outcome, you were upset and rejected that part of yourself and moved on with your life, resolving never to do that again. Now your job is to heal yourself and make yourself whole. So now, in your mind, show understanding and appreciation for that part of yourself and welcome that part back into the wholeness of who you are. And I tell you that that part of yourself is now far wiser and has wonderful ways to contribute to your life if you'll allow it. And you may even ask it questions, and it will have amazing answers for you. And it's probably a good idea to update that part of you and say, I was 13 then, or 19 then, or 27, and now I'm 70. So get with the program, because it's operating like you were still 13 or 27. This is how I want to end this talk. Emotions are our great ally. Emotions can take us to healing and wholeness. When you have strong emotion, you have strong guidance. Do not deny your emotions. Our emotions are just messengers bringing us communication on a continuous basis from our inner spirit. Don't shoot the messenger. Once you understand your feelings are your ally and you can use them effectively to navigate this reality, you will be empowered. And so, this talk will go up on Vibe Life like my Wednesday night talks as well. So if you want to hear it over, also the presentation material will go up on Facebook, so on Vibe Life Facebook. So you can go there and download this, or if you want to listen to parts of this over again, it'll be up there for you to listen to, so please feel free to take advantage of that. And Mary Lou and Pierre have quite a bit of information up on the NBOC website as well. So please feel free to take advantage of that also. Now, I need you to remind me, hon, when somebody asks a question, for me to repeat it. Okay, any questions?
I have more of a comment. Listening to you speak, I recall having read an essay. I recall in college having read an essay by Kant that was called "Happiness is to do one's duty," and it wasn't. The name of it kind of misleads the reader. And what it was really about was your ability to always do the happiness. The key to happiness is always doing what you feel is the right thing. Of course, you have to feel something to know what that is, but it's your personal truth. So if you don't do what it is that you believe is right, you will have negative emotions and consequences for it because you will feel bad. That's not anybody making that happen but you. I think that's kind of in line with what you're saying.
Completely in line. That's brilliant. Thank you for contributing that. I really appreciate it. Mark.
So the other day I was listening to a Marianne Williamson talk, and she was talking about parenting and whatnot. It was really quite good. Not that I have children, but I've been around people that raise them, and it's always an interesting insight. But she made a comment about a young person, teenager, as they grow, that for a young man that's like between 14 and 16, she said, you know, the best thing you can do in communicating with them is ask them what they think, because they're not in touch with their feelings yet. Because to say, what do you feel, puts them into confusion, because then they have to search for something, where if you say, what do you think, it doesn't put them in that same regard. So as a man developing himself, you know, having to transition from thinking to feeling at some point too. So any thoughts about that?
Well, that sounds like my story. So fortunately, I'm with
Repeat the
Reba.
question. I thought you asked if you could repeat the question.
Well, that was because I.
Oh, since he had the microphone, yeah, I'm giving myself a break on that. So what I found is that I repressed a lot of emotion and didn't realize it. And I was really good at it, but you can't be with Reba and get away with that. And so I've really grown a lot, sometimes much to my chagrin, but always much to my benefit. And it's gotten to the point now where I really welcome it. I just want to know about what the heck is going on inside of me. And the way I do that is by paying attention to my feelings. And if I'm not doing that, Reba usually is. So that's a big help. And she has told me, honestly, that she does censor her emotions so that she doesn't upset me. And I don't really want to be a part of that. And now that I've understood that recently, hopefully she'll express her emotions more fully without anything in her hand or anything.
But that doesn't get back to what the first part of my question was. Between a 14 and 16-year-old, do you agree with that, to ask them what they think versus what they feel?
So the comment is, if you're working with a 14 to 16-year-old, do you ask them what they think versus what they feel? Well, this is a good opportunity for me to demonstrate I don't know everything. and honestly, I don't know. I would say this, that if they've been in a loving, connected relationship with a parent that they trust, then it's probably okay to ask about their feelings. But if you're just looking to make a connection and open a bridge to a younger person without making them feel uncomfortable, I would say that the latter approach of asking them what they're thinking is probably a great first step.
You know what I want to say, Miles? Last week we spoke about intuition and how we have this vagus nerve that goes through our hearts and everything, and really most of the messages are sent from our feeling, from our gut. 80 to 90%. Only from 10 to 20% come from the brain back down. So really, the emotions are so connected with intuition, because if we can get in contact with how we're feeling, and we know what part of the body is, giving us those symptoms or whatever, we really can get in touch with intuition and how to make decisions. And I think we're in that time that things are so energetically fast, we don't have time to sit around and think it over, but we're really connecting to those emotions, which is really intuition.
Yeah. Let's see, I think you had your hand up next, Kat.
I can remember when I was in school, in college, and I was going out with this lady who was like, I was older because I'd been in the service in the middle there. So I was going out with, and she was like working on her PhD in psychology or something, and she asked me how I felt about something, and it was like, well, I don't know. I mean, I really hadn't looked at it that way before. So, like you said, I was like a lot older than 14, and I didn't, and that was a foreign thing to me because I really hadn't come across what what that was even. I mean, you know, it was like a foreign item. How do I feel about that?
That wasn't part of your service training.
Right, no. Definitely in the military, they don't tell you to check out your feelings.
Well, I think as a society, men are taught to suppress their emotions.
Yeah.
Because you have to be a
Don't feel your
man.
feelings.
You know,
and,
you're not allowed
be a
to
man
cry
and,
and,
all that
you know,
stuff.
so that's why I think women are more.
Yeah, oh, yeah, definitely.
But I have a real quick question. When you're feeling a little like down or whatever, and you know you can feel that feeling, what's the quickest way to like go, okay, this is enough? Because sometimes you can get like too much into a pity party.
Yeah.
You know.
So that's a great question, and it's, I tried to go over an example. I like to get up and go for a walk, or do something. Olivia's got the right idea back there. She's really enjoying herself. So, and then, and smile, and then try and reconnect. So when I get out of where I was, because where you are is a reflection of your vibration. And then get to someplace, and nature is always a great uplifter. I've learned this from Reba. So the TV doesn't work that well, FYI. Let's see. Give me a second. We've got lots of
I just,
and then we'll go to Scott.
I want to make this quick because I know so often when even adults, you ask them how do you feel about, how do you feel about something or whatever. I feel like I'm doing the wrong thing. Well, that's not a feeling, but that's thinking about what they're doing. That's a thought. And it's not just children. So I just wanted to put that out there that many people have, they're not really, they don't have, and I think Kev may have kind of gotten into that because he's not in touch, but too often people are more, what they're thinking as opposed to what they're feeling. They don't really know.
Yeah, that's a great point. Let's see. And then pass that to Scott, or okay. When you're done, pass that to Scott.
Okay, I was just thinking about young people. I had 4 of them in 5 years, so I know
Wow.
about teenagers at one point. From all the studies, they show the brain's not finished until you're 25. And the last part of the brain to make the connection is cause and effect. And that's why teenagers, we've all done silly things that we never would have done when we were older, because now, it's universal. Teenagers do things that they regret later because that does not make the connection. That's the last electrical connection in a young person.
Having been a parent and been very involved with Boy Scouts, 14 to 16-year-old boys don't think or feel.
Either one.
What they do is do. So what
They do.
they've got so much energy and so much hormones going on and that kind of thing, that the question to a 14 to 16-year-old male is, okay, what would you like to do? And with Boy Scouts it was fairly easy. We want to go canoeing. We want to play manhunt and run around in a dark field in the middle of the night and clothesline ourselves. That's what we want to do. So the whole idea when I went through training in Boy Scouts was give them the opportunity to fail for themselves in a safe environment.
Wow, that's
which
brilliant.
is where they learn their lessons.
Yeah.
And the other little thing that I did want to say in addition to that is a big thank you to Clay for putting up all the material on Bi-Blade for us, because it is very handy.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that, Scott. And then we'll pass it to Paul.
Very quickly, 2 things. Years ago, I remember a similar talk like this, and somebody wrote on a whiteboard, emotions are, and then asked people to fill in the blank. And after about 5 minutes of people throwing out all kinds of stuff, he just walked up to the board and put a period. Emotions are.
Oh, that's good.
Feelings are.
Wow. Oh, that's
It's a
good.
start,
That's
acknowledge
good.
it. And the other thing, I remember years ago on Rowan and Martin's Laughing, Joanne Worley came out and said, when you're down and out, lift up your head and shout, I'm down and out! And you know, the funny thing is, the funny thing is that I have always believed that shared joy is double.
Yes.
Shared grief is cut in half. So if you're down and out, let somebody else know.
Yeah. Brilliant, brilliant.
Well, I think the subject of teenage boys has taken on a life of its own here.
Yeah.
I'm going to throw one more thing in here, but I want to throw the other side of the conversation. Now, as I look around the room, many of us have been parents. We're not still parents with the exception of one couple back here. So for you, it's really to you I'd be speaking right now. I think, as you said, in a safe, if all you're trying to do is create communication, create rapport, create friendship, then yes, ask them what they think. But in a safe environment with your parents, right? Preferably with your parents first, and then it becomes girlfriends and right down the road. Teach boys how to feel. I mean, they do feel and they do think.
Yeah.
Okay? And the sooner they become, the sooner they can recognize their feelings and know how to deal with, how to transition negative feelings, okay? Or actually, what I like to say is make it disperse. The sooner they learn that, the much better off they'll be in life.
Oh, thank you, Paul.
By the way, insurance companies know that. That's why they wait till you're 25 before you're insured. No, that's absolutely true.
Very true.
That's true.
I'm 66 and my brain still isn't finished.
It's just a coincidence. I've been to services for 2 weeks, religious, Jewish, and here. And there's a universal subconscious because the rabbi spoke about feelings and was crying this week.
Oh my God.
And last week, the rabbi spoke about how we all need each other, and even though we're in our own bubble, we need each other, and that's our purpose on life. And that's what we spoke about here last week. So there's a universal subconscious that's sending these sermons to all denominations, and we're all speaking about the same thing every week.
Wonderful.
I mean, at least that's what I've experienced at least 2 weeks in a row.
That's cool.
So that's cool.
Yeah, that's genius, Judy.
Yeah.
Order for
So,
the chaos.
so the how is it the airplane was invented in the United States, and a week later, completely independently, it flew in France. And Thomas Edison was really clear. He goes, these inventions are out there for everybody. So you're absolutely right. The consciousness raises and we all connect to it. In fact, we all plan the play that we're going to step into the next day. Now, one last thing about emotions and behavior of young people and children. I'm going to let Reva speak about this because we had such a breathtakingly beautiful example in our lives with our grandson, who was hyperactive. I took 100 pictures of him and only 2 weren't a blur. And I'm just going to let Reva speak about how her son and daughter literally had to take a new approach. They had to find it for themselves.
I'm not sure what you want me to say.
Well, why don't I speak for us? So what I observed with Ethan was that they always honored his feelings. They said it's okay to be upset. It's okay to feel bad. And that would always be their starting point. So the first thing that they would do in interacting with him was validate what was going on for him and validate his feelings. And then the next step was wherever they were going to go. And that was a big reach for them. But they went out and found the new parenting books and found a new way to parent instead of telling them what to do, and connecting with them in an emotional way. And Reeve and I are simply stunned at the change in a little 4 and then 5. And now he's 8 years old and he's just completely delightful. And he was as soon as they started that process. You could see a dramatic change in his behavior. I can't help looking over her. She's so beautiful. Yeah, I think you're the light of the world, kiddo. So, any other questions, comments, or concerns? Oh, yes.
You know what, with emotions, I think the greatest thing in my life right now, one of the greatest things other than him, is our Alexis Echo. I find that when I'm at home working around the house and my emotions, I think constantly, my mind's going, and I can change emotions and flip. And I just say, Alexa, play anything happy, I'll pick a happy song and I start dancing and I completely forget about, I think music changes emotions in an instant.
Oh, yeah.
It's the greatest thing in our life.
Yep.
And to sit silently and to dwell on negative thoughts, it really isn't healthy. But you can flip those negative thoughts just through music and happy music.
And getting up and dancing, yeah.
I dance all the time in my house, all the time.
Any other questions, comments?
Huh?
Okay.
Roger.
Oh. One last thing. I'm really excited. Reba and I have been working on our presentation for Wednesday, 3-dimensionality to 5-dimensionality. And we're going to go over some markers so you can tell where you're at in this process. Really exciting. I've had so much fun working with her on that. So Wednesday, if you have time, join us. Thanks, Roger.